I stood at the entrance of La Belle Étoile, one of New York City's most exclusive restaurants, my heart steady despite the knot in my stomach. The maitre d', a man with a crisp suit and an even crisper demeanor, barely looked at me before shaking his head. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but there's no reservation under your name." I blinked, caught off guard. "That's impossible. I'm here for a dinner with my husband's family. They should already be seated." He offered a polite but firm smile. I checked. "There's a reservation for 6 under Margaret Reynolds, but I'm afraid—" A sharp, familiar voice cut through the air before he could finish. "Oh, Sarah, really?" My mother-in-law, Margaret, stood a few feet away, her designer dress gleaming under the chandelier light, her platinum blonde hair immaculate. Her tone dripped with amusement. "Did you honestly think you were invited to tonight's dinner?" I turned to face her, my stomach twisting as I saw my husband James sitting stiffly at the table behind her. His eyes darted between us, but he said nothing. Beside him, his sisters, Emily and Olivia, whispered to each other, smirking. The humiliation hit like a wave, but I refused to let it show. "I don't understand," I said, keeping my voice even. Margaret's smile widened, predatory. "Oh, sweetheart, I didn't think you'd actually show up." She chuckled, as if I'd done something absurd. "This is a family dinner, a place like this. It's a bit above your level, so don't you think? Maybe a diner would suit you better." Emily snickered behind her wine glass. Olivia avoided my gaze. James gripped his fork, silent. The air grew thick with judgment, and I could feel the curious glances of other diners. I should have seen this coming. 4 years, Margaret had made it clear I wasn't good enough for her son. I didn't come from wealth like she did. I hadn't gone to Ivy League schools or grown up in their elite world. From the moment James and I got engaged, Margaret had gone out of her way to remind me I didn't belong. Subtle jabs about my basic tastes, forgetting to invite me to family events, lavish gifts for James while I got nothing but her cold smiles. But tonight was different. She'd planned this, booked an exclusive dinner, and deliberately left me off the guest list to humiliate me in front of James, his sisters, and a room full of strangers. And she was loving every second of it. The shame should have crushed me, but instead, something inside me shifted. I smiled, a slow, deliberate smile that made Margaret's expression falter for a split second. Then turning to the maitre d', I said, "Would you kindly ask the owner to come out?" Margaret laughed, sharp and mocking. "Oh, please. Do you really think the owner of La Belle Étoile is going to drop everything just because you asked?" I met her gaze evenly. "Yes, because the owner knows me very well." Her smirk didn't waver, but I saw it, the flicker of doubt in her eyes. She'd spent years treating me like an outsider, but tonight she'd escalated her game into outright cruelty, and she was about to learn she'd miscalculated. The maitre d' hesitated, unsure whether to indulge me. Before he could decide, a deep voice broke the tension. "Sarah?" I turned as Michael Laurent, the owner of La Belle Étoile, stepped forward. In his early 50s, Michael was the picture of elegance, salt and pepper hair, tailored suit, and the quiet confidence of a man who owned one of Manhattan's most coveted restaurants. Margaret's eyes widened slightly as she registered the warmth in his gaze toward me. "Michael," I said, my smile growing. "It's been a while." His eyes flicked to Margaret, then to James and his sisters, before settling back on me. "What brings you here tonight?" I gestured toward the table where my in-laws sat, their amusement fading. Apparently, I wasn't included in the reservation. A bit of an oversight, wouldn't you say? Michael's eyes darkened, catching the subtext. Then, with a polite smile, he said, "That won't do at all." He turned to the maitre d'. "Sarah isn't a walk-in. She's family." The table froze. Emily's glass nearly slipped from her hand. Olivia's eyes darted between us in shock. James's grip on his silverware tightened, but he stayed silent. Margaret, however, wasn't one to back down. She let out a disbelieving laugh. "Family? Oh, this is rich. You must be mistaken. Sarah is my son's wife, and I assure you she has no connections to—" "Actually," I interrupted smoothly, "Michael and I go way back." Margaret's eyes narrowed. "How?" I leaned forward, my voice loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "Before I married James, I worked in fine dining. Michael was my mentor." A stunned silence settled over the table. Margaret opened her mouth to protest, but Michael cut her off, his smile polite but firm. Sarah isn't just some former employee. She trained under me when she was fresh out of culinary school. I taught her everything about hospitality and high-end service. She was one of the best I ever had. Margaret's jaw tightened. This wasn't going her way. I could see the realization dawning. She'd underestimated me, and her carefully planned stunt was unraveling. I turned to the maitre d'. I assume Michael's word is good enough to find me a seat. He straightened instantly. Of course, Miss Sarah. I'll have a table prepared right away. Margaret's face turned crimson. This is ridiculous, she hissed. You're telling me she gets a special treatment just because she used to work for you? Michael chuckled. No, she gets special treatment because she earned it. A waiter hurried over, setting a place at their table right next to James. I raised an eyebrow, feigning surprise. Looks like there's plenty of room after all. Margaret's fingers curled into fists. I leaned in, lowering my voice so only she could hear. What's ridiculous is that you thought you could humiliate me and get away with it. Her nostrils flared. You're being dramatic. I shrugged. I'm just enjoying dinner with my family. Isn't that what you wanted? Before she could respond, Michael patted my shoulder. I'll have the chef send over something special for you, Sarah. On the house. Margaret nearly choked. The waiter placed a polished silver plate in front of me, followed by an exquisite amuse-bouche, artfully arranged and complimentary, courtesy of Michael. Margaret's expression was pure rage. Oh, I murmured, slicing through the dish with practiced ease. This looks incredible. I took a bite, savoring the tense silence that followed. Emily and Olivia exchanged wary glances. James stared at his wine glass, avoiding me. Margaret took a slow sip of her wine, her hand trembling slightly. Well, she said, forcing a tight smile, I suppose it's only natural someone like you would know people in hospitality. I arched a brow. Hospitality? She waved a hand, feigning politeness. You know, service industries, waiting tables, kitchen work, not exactly the careers we're accustomed to in this family. There it was, the real reason for her stunt. It wasn't just about excluding me. It was about reminding everyone I was lesser because I'd worked my way up. I took a sip of wine before responding. You say that like it's a bad thing. Margaret's eyes flickered with surprise. She'd expected me to crumble. I simply meant, she continued, her tone dripping with condescension, it must be quite an adjustment, marrying into a family like ours. I turned to James, who still wouldn't meet my eyes. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about Margaret's cruelty. It was about his silence. This wasn't the first time she'd humiliated me. At our wedding, she forgot to invite my family to the rehearsal dinner. At Christmas, she gifted me a cookbook titled Easy Meals for the Simple Wife, in front of everyone. Last summer, she remarked how fortunate I was that James had taken a chance on me. And every time, James let it slide. I'd told myself it wasn't worth fighting over, but tonight was different. I set my wine glass down, leaning forward. Margaret, do you know the difference between you and me? She tilted her head, curious despite herself. I smiled. I worked for everything I have. Her face hardened. Excuse me? You heard me. I gestured at the table. I didn't marry into wealth. I didn't inherit status. I built my career from the ground up. And yet here we are, same restaurant, same food, same respect from the owner. Margaret's knuckles whitened around her napkin. Emily and Olivia weren't laughing anymore. James looked like he wanted to disappear. For the first time, I saw fear flicker across Margaret's face. She'd spent years convincing herself I didn't belong. But now she was realizing I wasn't someone she could break. I picked up my fork, cutting into my dish again. Oh, and Margaret? Her eyes snapped to mine. Be careful who you look down on. You never know who might end up above you. The tension was suffocating. Margaret composed herself, placing her glass down with a deliberate click. I suppose I should commend you, Sarah. You've elevated yourself beyond your circumstances. She leaned forward, her voice a mocking whisper. But tell me, if you're so independent, why is my son paying for your lifestyle? I paused. Emily gasped quietly. Olivia shifted uncomfortably. James flinched. Margaret's smile sharpened, thinking she'd landed the final blow. I set my glass down, then laughed. A full, genuine laugh. I'm sorry, is something funny? She snapped. I just realized how out of touch you are, I said, gesturing toward James. You think he supports me? That's adorable. Margaret's smile dropped. What are you talking about? I sighed, almost pitying her. You still see James as your golden boy, the provider. But let me tell you something. His business, his investments, half were funded with my money. Her eyes widened. What? I smiled, no warmth in it. James didn't have the capital to start investing. I did. His success? Built on my investments, my strategies, my support. Margaret's fingers twitched. That's not possible. Believe what you want, I said, shrugging. But the truth is, James needs me far more than I need him. She turned to James for confirmation, but he was silent, pale. I stood, smoothing my dress. I think I'm done here. Margaret's nostrils flared. You can't just... I turned to Michael. It was lovely seeing you. Thank you for the hospitality. Always a pleasure, Sarah, he said, amused. I looked at James. You coming? He hesitated, glancing at his mother, and in that moment I knew he wouldn't choose me. He never had. Margaret's smile was triumphant, but I smiled back. She didn't know I'd already made my choice. I stepped outside, the night air sharp against my skin. My phone was in my hand before I reached the curb. I typed a message to my attorney. We're moving forward. Initiate the process tomorrow. The response was instant. Understood. Divorce settlement draft by noon. Divorce. The word didn't scare me anymore. What scared me was how long I'd ignored the truth, that James had never been on my side. But tonight had been the push I needed. At home, I went straight to the office safe. James never changed the passcode, a mistake. Inside were the financial documents, including the contract tying his biggest investment to my initial funds. I snapped a photo, then packed a suitcase with calm precision. This wasn't emotional, it was calculated. When James walked in, he froze, eyeing the suitcase. Sarah, what are you doing? Leaving it, I said, my voice steady. His jaw tensed. Claire, let's talk about this. I laughed. There's nothing left to talk about, James. You made your choice tonight when you let your mother humiliate me again. It's complicated, he stammered. You know how she is. No, James, it's simple. You're weak. His eyes flashed with offense, but it was true. You've let her dictate our marriage. I was patient, but tonight I'm done. He swallowed. I'll fight you on this. You think you're walking away with half of everything? You're mistaken. I smiled. Oh, James, you should read your contracts more carefully. His face paled. What? You used my money to build your investments. I have the paperwork to prove it. I let you borrow it, but now I want it back. He staggered, gripping the counter. This says you own 51% of my firm. Correct, I said. I was the initial investor. You just assumed I'd transferred ownership. You never read the contracts, did you? Sarah, you can't take this from me, he said, voice tight. I'm not taking anything. I already own it. A month later, I sat in my penthouse, champagne in hand. My attorney slid the finalized divorce papers toward me. It's official. You're free. I exhaled, running my fingers over the papers. The legal battle had been brutal but short. James tried to fight, but my documents were ironclad. Margaret called, accusing me of being a gold digger. I told her, if you'd raised him better, this wouldn't have happened, and blocked her number. My phone buzzed. James, can we talk? I smirked, typing back. About what? A pause. I don't know what to do. I shook my head. For years, I'd waited for him to fight for me, but now I saw him for what he was, a man too weak to stand on his own. I sent one final message. That's not my problem anymore. Then I blocked him too. For the first time, I was choosing myself, and that was the most powerful thing I'd ever done.